Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on this Monday evening for our LinkedIn event. My name is Olivia, and I work in the marketing team here at Lukia, and I am joined by our guest speaker, Sarina Mughal. Serena is joining us tonight to answer the question, can you make six figures as a pharmacist? And I know we're all very excited to hear the answer to that. Uh, Firstly, we've got a little bit of an agenda here for this evening, so it is short and sweet. So for anyone who is new around here, I'll be giving a quick introduction to Lukia Locum, who we are and what we do. I'll also be talking about LPro, which is a brand new subscription service offered by Lukia Locum. And as we are talking tonight about managing our finances, it's very apt, and I'm really excited to share the latest updates with you. Then I will be passing to Serena, who will be talking about her pharmacy journey and sharing expert advice on managing your finances as a pharmacist. And then we'll have a dedicated Q&A session towards the end of the event. So please do feel free to post in any questions that you may have during the event to the comment section on LinkedIn, and we will get to them towards the end. So firstly, who are Lukia Locum? So Lukia Locum is an app and an online platform for locum pharmacy workers. We work with 8,000 employers who post shifts to the app, and we're joined by 44,000 locums who are currently using the platform to find work in the UK. So you can access our app by downloading it from the App Store or Google Play, and all you have to do is create your free account. So for pharmacists, the essential documents that you need to get registered with us are your GPHC number, your indemnity insurance, photographic ID, and an enhanced police check. So it's really, really easy to get started. If you have any questions about sort of registering with us, you can always reach out to us via the app, via social media, or filling out a form on our website. We have an in-house compliance team who are equipped to answer all of your questions about getting started. But the app is really easy to use. You can upload all of your essential documents from your phone. You can just take a photograph of them. So it's really, really straightforward to get started. And there's definitely a lot of support available. So if you haven't already, please do download our app and give it a go. So this is just an example of some of the clients that we work with. So we work with the large pharmacy multiples here in the UK. If you're spotting Specsavers, I do not need to get my eyes tested. We also work in the optometry market also. So we work with the multiples, but we also work with independents in the UK too. So there is a lot of variety in the shifts available that for you to choose from. And as you say, it's UK-wide coverage, so there's definitely shifts that are suitable for you in your local area. So, as I mentioned, LalPro is a completely brand new service for us at Lukia Locum. So, what is LalPro? It is designed to help you manage your finances as a self-employed locum. So, managing finances can be a very, challenging. Maybe people are like scared of becoming self-employed because it's a bit of a minefield. So, LalPro was designed to help support you in your locum career. So you can manage your invoices via the app. So whenever you work a shift, you're able to create your invoices instantly, send them to the employer, and which is a godsend. You can also track the status of that invoice. So it can be a real, challenge for self-employed people to see, when their payment is coming, if the employer has even received their invoice. So with the app, you're able to see all of that. It gives you full visibility and really improves your communication between yourself and the employer. You're also able to track your expenses, so there's no more worrying about losing receipts or anything like that. There within the app, you're able to capture all the expenses that you may accrue on a shift. So whenever you go to for your self-assessment at the end of the financial year, everything is there and ready for you. So speaking of self-assessments, it's really difficult sometimes to sort of reconcile all of the transactions that you may accrue during the financial year. So with LAL Pro, you're able to keep a clear record of all the transactions. They are time and date stamped. So it makes things a lot easier, whether you are filing your self-assessment yourself, or if you are speaking to an accountant, I'm sure they would be very happy to have everything so organized. So it's with the app, you're able to keep it there in one place. And finally, you're able to receive insights and reports on your activity within the app. So it gives you like valuable financial insights into, say like the rates of pay that you're working for, areas that you're working, and really helps you make informed decisions on your working career. So there's definitely a lot of benefit as a locum to have LPro. So you're probably wondering, well, how much is LPro? So you can subscribe to LPro on a monthly or a yearly basis. So it is £12 a month. And if you are looking to sort of try the LPro out, you can scan the QR code on the screen and receive a 30-day free trial. So please feel free to log in, see how you get on with it. It's designed to be really easy to use. Try sending a few invoices, things like that there, to see the value that it can really give to you. And if you are looking to commit to purchasing a LPro, there's a discount code available on the screen. So you can receive 10% off your monthly or yearly subscription to LPro, and that is valid until the end of November. So even if you want to have a wee think about it, I'll be sending out the recording tomorrow. So if you've got any more information on LPro, please feel free to reach out to us. There's just a couple of other things I just wanted to mention about it. So firstly, because LPro is designed to help support your self-employed career, the huge benefit is that you can actually claim it as a business expense at the end of the financial year. So yes, you make the monthly or yearly investment now, but at the end of the financial year, you're actually able to claim that back. So it's a bit of a win-win for you. Essentially, it's free investment now, and then you can claim it back. So there's huge benefits to doing so. And then secondly, even if you don't subscribe to LPro, you can still use the Lukia Locum app for free. So don't be worrying about that there. You're still able to, access all the shifts that are available, apply, book, and search. The only additional fee is if you subscribe to LPro. So I just wanted to make that there very clear. But as I say, if you have any questions about it, please do reach out to us and we'd be more than happy to help. So I'm just going to pass over to Serena here, who will be answering our big question of the night.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining. My name is Sarina Mughal. I've done quite a few of these types of webinars with Locator Locum and other companies before, but for those of you who don't know, I'm also a pharmacist by background. This is going to be quite a informal, very interactive chat, so I'm more than happy for everyone to just pop comments in the chat. I can answer them throughout the presentation, and we can even answer questions as we go along. So just a bit of background about me and my career and sort of my journey. So I've been a pharmacist for 10 years now. It's coming up to 11. And I did my pre-registration year with Day-Lewis Pharmacy. And I've done a variety of roles since I've qualified, hence the term pharmpreneur. I'm definitely on a very entrepreneurial journey, and I definitely feel that's where I sit perfectly, and that's where a lot of my strengths lie. So I've done various things. From when I first qualified, I actually became a locum pharmacist. I didn't stay within an employed role, became a locum pharmacist, and that was purely because I was offered a position with Day-Lewis Pharmacy, and it just wasn't the right fit, and the location I was given was quite far out. So that's the only reason I decided to become a locum. And I also worked out financially I could make more money as a locum pharmacist if I got all the shifts, as opposed to being a relief back 10 years ago. So I went on, did a lot of locum work. Back in those days, I can't believe I'm saying back in those days. Back in those days, it was very different. We weren't as fortunate as we are today to have several different pieces of technology and apps, for example. I didn't have Locator Locum back 10 years ago. It was very much independent pharmacies getting in touch with the head of locum coordination for Day-Lewis, for Boots, Superdrug, Tesco Pharmacy, and a lot of word of mouth as well. And there were agencies that I used back then as well, especially in the early days of my career, to actually help me get all those shifts. And then before I knew it, I was working on private pilot projects as well. When I qualified, I was actually one of the first pharmacists to work for the NHS 111 service. And it was a pilot project to prove that pharmacists have such amazing skill sets that we can actually also work in sectors such as out of hours, emergency care, like 111. So it was myself and 9 other pharmacists. We were there to basically prove that you can actually hire pharmacists, pay us less than what you're paying an out of hours doctor, which back then it was £100 an hour. And sometimes some of the questions they were having to answer for patients were quite simple things that a pharmacist could do, and where patients are calling in with queries such as, can I take my Zopiclone with my paracetamol, for example? You don't actually need to pay a doctor or GP, sorry if there's any GPs on this call, £100 an hour to answer that question when you could easily pay a pharmacist that. So it was a whole project just to prove that, yes, pharmacists are valuable to the service. And now I believe there are hundreds of roles out there for pharmacists in out of hours service in NHS 111. So that's fantastic. Then I actually was offered a pharmacy manager position with Day Lewis in one of their pharmacies in South London. I took on that role, and it was more of a fixing pharmacy. The challenge was to actually grow the business, grow the items, grow the services. We obviously had very different services back then to compare to what we have today in community pharmacy. So I really enjoyed that, got stuck into that role. At the same time, I was actually working in the Day Lewis Superintendent Office department 2 days a week in several legal regulatory cases. So things like when a patient, when there's a dispensing error, different pharmacy chains and companies have different processes, what they do. So my roles and responsibility there was to basically deal with what happens after a dispensing error happens, basically. So the pharmacies would report to the superintendent office with an error, and then in the superintendent office we would deal with it in a appropriate manner, whether that's speaking to patients, depending how much level of harm has occurred, if any has occurred. So that was sort of 2 days a week, and the other 3 days were my pharmacy manager role. Then fast forward a little bit, still within Day Lewis Pharmacy, I was a project management pharmacist. So when, I don't know how many of you guys are on this call how long you've been qualified, but some of you may remember the first time we had the quality payment scheme. So I was the first pharmacist for Day Lewis to basically set out the processes and the development processes across all 300 pharmacies. Then it sort of progressed even further, and I was doing projects with King's College Hospital, as well as Health Education England. This was a very big educational role. And again, another pilot project just to prove that when we have newly qualified pharmacists, you can work in several different sectors. So I was a supervisor to essentially supervise some pharmacists that were going to become super pharmacists, I like to call them. So the program was a 3-year program that I was looking after. And when you qualify, you basically work in community, hospital and GP practice, and then you go on and get your IP qualification. So that was fantastic. And now obviously that's really beneficial now for my skill set, because soon a lot of pharmacy students will come out of university, and when they graduate, they will already be prescribers. Then obviously I've been doing Harrods Pharmacy for a while as well. So I'm in charge of that whole operation, which is a multi-million-pound operation in itself. That's in Knightsbridge in London. That's very busy, very different community pharmacy compared to some of the others I've worked in and some of the others I've managed. I'm still doing that today. And it's a very busy yet differently demanding pharmacy. So people think it's very glamorous with the location, it being a heavy tourist area. However, it is long days, long hours, a completely different type of stress that you'll find in other community pharmacies. Then there's some media work thrown in there. I do a lot of social media work. I work with some large pharmacy magazines across the country. I got my prescribing qualification, and then it sort of snowballed from there to the point I've just constantly kept adding things on. And that's purely because I've been someone who's always liked to think outside the box when it comes to pharmacy in my career. There's always something new happening. There's always something changing. So I always want to try and get ahead of the game before I sort of get left behind, because the industry has changed so much in the last 10 years. I mean, I've probably been in pharmacy since a teenager, so even longer than 10 years, just part-time jobs at university, etc. So it is very different now. And one of the things I've always said is just constantly upskill yourself, to the point. Then I've done some medical cannabis work. I was the second pharmacist in the country to legally be allowed to prescribe medical cannabis under consultant supervision. And then I'm also in the aesthetic space now, which is one of my favorite things to do. And I've got my own aesthetics clinic. So yes, it's a lot over the last 10 years, but this is not to say if you are newly qualified and you're on this webinar, this is not to say you have to have achieved these things in 10 years time. Some people prefer to just have one role within a community pharmacy for 10, 20 years. That's perfectly fine. There's just to show you that there's so many different options out there. Olivia, if you could just go to the next slide.
I think that's it. It's really like your career's just, yeah, of course, yeah.
Thank
There
you.
we go.
So obviously there's so many different sectors within pharmacy. We've got community, we've got hospital. So those are the kind of sectors that were around when I first qualified. It was all about community, hospital, and pharmaceutical industry. All the other roles weren't really there as much. When I first qualified, I'd never heard of a pharmacist doing aesthetics, or medical research, for example, social media. I'd heard of things like regulatory affairs, military pharmacists, but they were so far and few in between. But as the industry has grown in the last 10 years, from my perspective anyway, you can see how many different roles are now coming out. And it's really nice to see, to be honest. It just gives me a bit more hope and makes me think, so, well, then in the next 10 years, there'll be even more roles for us to choose from. Because when I first was doing my pre-reg, I'd often come across other pharmacists who've been qualified for a long time, and some of them were saying it's becoming a bit repetitive. But I honestly feel like we're so lucky at the moment that it's not as repetitive as when I first qualified. So now there's a whole array of different areas you can go into. Next slide, please, Olivia. Okay, right. So the juicy topic, money. So disclaimer, I'm not actually a financial advisor. I'm not a financial specialist. I'm not an accountant. I'm just giving you my own input and some of the research I've done and some of the things that I've been through. So we're all pharmacists, we're all qualified, whether you're newly qualified, a pre-reg, etc., or you've been qualified for 10, 20, 30 years. Pharmacy has changed so much. If you look at, in the UK, the average salary of a pharmacist is between £40,000 to £50,000 per year. And then the average salary in the UK, not of a pharmacist, just an average UK salary is between 33 to 35k per annum. If you're in London, it's a little bit higher, between 40 to 45. So already just being a pharmacist, you are in that slightly higher bracket. So first of all, give yourself a pat on the back. So we're not doing that bad. But I want to draw your attention to the fact that there are so many different sectors, as mentioned, and also there's so many excuse me, there's so many different salaries between those sectors. So if you just look at the table on the screen, we've community pharmacy sort of starts from 30, 35,000, and you're looking to go up to about 60 if you're an experienced pharmacy manager. And of course, that can grow depending on your role within community pharmacy. However, just from my experience, unless you're sort of head of pharmacy or really regional and things like that, it's not often common to be able to earn six figures from community pharmacy as an employed pharmacist. Again, there may be specialist situations, but generally speaking, and the average salary bracket is up to about 60,000 for community pharmacy managers. Then moving swiftly into hospital pharmacy, again, this can vary depending on which NHS trust you work for, which locality. Of course, London gets a higher allowance because of the cost of living in London is a bit higher. So you do get a little bit more, but you can see it is slightly higher overall. So if you get to a senior role in hospital pharmacy, it can sort of go up to 70,000. And then when we're talking about band 8 C, D, and then even higher, like band 9. And if you're looking at chief pharmacist roles, then of course it is possible. The salary brackets there are touching six figures. You're looking at 80 to 90,000 pounds, and so on and so on. So it is completely possible. Again, it just does depend on the role that you're doing. GP practice, there are pros and cons of every single sector. If you have children, for example, I know a lot of pharmacists who are mums, dads, etc. And for them, GP practice is actually better work-life flexibility because the hours are slightly less. You get to sit down, which anyone who works in community pharmacy, you'll know, you probably need a massage very often because statistically, we've been known to get sore legs because we're standing up all day. So it's not the greatest on your knees. Industry roles, here you definitely do have the potential to earn a much higher salary. However, if you're switching sectors, so if you are a community pharmacist looking to go into industry, you will sort of have to start at an entry level role, even if you've been a pharmacist for about 10 years like myself. And entry level roles may require you to take a pay cut from what you're doing at the moment, but you can grow quite quickly. And pharmaceutical industry roles are very corporate. So you're not going to have like patient interaction. If you do enjoy that part of being a pharmacist, then an industry role may not be for you. However, if you enjoy more of the back side of it, which is like the background and MSL work, regulatory affairs, research development. It is more almost office based. And of course, there are some pharmaceutical companies that are hybrid roles, so you don't always have to go into the office. A lot of it is work from home, which again offers flexibility to a lot of pharmacists at the moment. Then independent prescriber roles. I'm actually an independent prescriber myself, and sometimes I do some private clinics, private prescribing for online clinics and online pharmacies. On the odd occasion, etc. That sort of just keeps my clinical skill set up to speed. In Harrods, we do actually have a prescribing clinic too. I wouldn't say it's a full clinic, but we offer a prescribing service for minor illnesses, acute medicines, etc. So these sorts of IP roles are great if you want to earn some extra money, if you want to develop a new skill set that is remote working. Now, when you're doing remote working, even with patients, whether that's video calls, phone calls, etc., there are so many new regulations coming out for online clinics and online pharmacies. So make sure you are actually fully up to speed with the regulations. Make sure whichever online pharmacies you might work for, there's always a two-way communication. You're not prescribing medication that can be abused. So very smaller medications that have less risk of abuse. Also make sure you're having regular clinical governance meetings with the clinic or pharmacy you may be working for. But it is a good way to definitely earn extra income and develop your clinical skill set. I find I learned so much just from working several different areas, because clinically, sometimes when you've been qualified a long time, you can go on autopilot in community pharmacy. Sometimes you can get stuck in your OTC, etc., that you forget certain clinical things that you would have done more of at university or pre-reg level. Then there are obviously locum pharmacist roles. You can use several companies such as Locate to Locum, different agencies. Obviously, locum rate is something that is discussed heavily in the pharmacy sector, which I think is good. But just from doing like an observation over the last 10 years, locum rates do fluctuate. So there is always this discussion of how much we should be paid depending on so this is how much we should be paid as a locum pharmacist, depending on the area you work in, the type of pharmacy it is, if it's in a GP practice, if it's a 100-hour pharmacy. I mean, the list goes on. But the rates do fluctuate, and that unfortunately just comes with the market. There'll be times, I remember in COVID, some locum rates were almost 50 to 60 pounds an hour, and that was not unheard of. That was very normal. And now I'd say the average, just doing a spread across the country, varies between 20 to 40 pounds an hour. From a financial point of view, I always say to pharmacists that locuming is a great way to add on some extra income if you feel your current role isn't providing you with the level of finances that you wish to have. So locuming is a good way to add in a bit extra. There's going to be times sometimes we need a bit more extra cash, and I think locuming is a good way to support that, and it's nothing you have to commit to. You can do a quick locum shift. On average, if let's just say your rate was 30 pounds an hour, you're doing a 9-hour day, 9 till 6, that's what, 30 times 9, that's 270 pounds an hour. 270 pounds, if you did that every week, let's say for a year, I'm not going to times it by 52 because let's pretend you go on holiday. It's 270 times 48, so that's an extra almost £13,000 annually just for one day a week. So it is a good way to add on some extra cash. And then you've also got some consultant pharmacist roles. And these are in more specialized areas. So, for example, I did a consultant pharmacist role in medical cannabis. Some pharmacists doing oncology, geriatrics, cardiology, the list goes on. And you are looking at a higher rate of pay, between 70 to 100,000 a year. And if you tend to go into private healthcare, whilst it's more competitive, yes, they do pay more. So already you can see there are so many different sectors at the moment that are slowly growing. And there are different areas which you can tap into those higher salaries. Sorry, Olivia, go back one more. The other thing I was going to say is certain things that you would want to consider is, first of all, you are already a pharmacist. So you already have an amazing skill set that often we forget. We actually have so many transferable skills that can actually be used in other different areas whether that's pharmacy, healthcare, finance, property, if you're going to purchase a clinic or anything like that. Especially if you are a community hospital, a patient-facing pharmacist, you've already got such good consultation skills and customer service skills that will help to carry you in so many other areas. We also have to consider things such as the cost of living has definitely increased. Let's not discuss the new tax budget that just came out, but yes, it's all definitely increased. Everyone is feeling the pinch a bit more. So hence, that's why a lot of people will be, no matter whether you're in pharmacy or any other sector, a lot of other people will be thinking of ways to make more money because everything's gone up. And unfortunately, our salaries have not gone up to reflect that increase in cost of living. So salaries have not gone up as much as cost of living has gone up. Also consider being employed versus self-employed. I can't sit here and say one is better than the other, because there's been times throughout my whole career I've been started off self-employed, then I became employed, then I was just fully employed and did no self-employed work. Then slowly I picked up some self-employed work, then I dropped it. So it literally comes in waves. You just have to do what's right for you and your lifestyle at that time. It's so easy to get caught up in the fact that your career, you're young, you want to achieve all these different qualifications, etc. But then also don't forget to live. God forbid when you die, no one's going to remember, how much money you made. They're going to remember the impact you made on people, and you want to actually enjoy your life. So I always try to encourage everyone, including myself, it's easier said than done, that you want to actually enjoy what you're doing. That's why with me, I haven't always been self-employed, or I haven't always been employed, or I haven't always done both. It will come in waves. There'll be times where some years I will fully work 7 days a week and I can do it. But then there'll be times where I want to cut back, and you get tired because we are humans, and you need to enjoy your life and rest. And sometimes the money will take a backseat. So just take it as it comes and make sure it fits into your life, not making your life fit around work. Also, it's very important to consider being a sole trader versus a limited company. And this is for the self-employed people in here. And the reason I say that is because if you're earning over a certain amount, so I usually say around, if you're earning more than about 50 to 60,000 pounds, or if you predict you're going to make more than that, then sometimes a limited company can be more beneficial from a tax point of view. However, on the flip side, your accounting fees will be a lot more for a limited company. There's a lot more stringency. It's really strict. You definitely need an accountant, a chartered accountant, because you can't do your accounts yourself. So there are more costs involved. But then on the pro side, so the advantages is that you can put more business expenses through and taxable expenses. And sometimes that is very beneficial. For example, the advice I tend to give to people, if you are wanting to buy a property, so if you're self-employed and you're wanting to buy a property, and obviously you have to declare your income, don't go crazy on the expenses, because the more expenses you're putting through the business, it's showing you earn less, and then that essentially is your salary that will go to your mortgage in principle and the banks. And when you're trying to get a mortgage, you want to show as much income as you can, especially if you're self-employed, because you usually have to give, I think, 2 to 3 years worth of self-assessment tax returns. So comes in waves. If you are someone, you're not trying to buy a property or anything, you just want to make good money and keep as much of it as you can and pay as less tax, then that's a completely different story. Now, I suppose the main question is the pharmacy sector improving or declining? In my humble opinion, I can definitely say it's definitely changed, and it's changing. So one thing I can say from when I first qualified to now, it's definitely improved in terms of the variety of jobs available. I would say from a finance point of view and a locum point of view, sometimes the rates have dropped. They go up and down, up and down, up and down. And sometimes I feel like, because pharmacy as a profession, we're not the most united. I don't feel like we are as united as doctors and dentists and nurses. We're definitely getting better, but I think we could be doing more. So, for example, in that sense, even when it comes to the pharmacy contract, a lot of work still needs to be done. Next slide, please, Olivia. Okay, so there's several other sources of income. So me personally, I try to have multiple different income streams, and that's purely from several different things I'm doing. So let's forget pharmacy for a second. So let's say you don't want to locum, you don't want to do any extra shifts, you're a pharmacy manager in community pharmacy, and you basically want to not make extra money through pharmacy still because you do it 5 days a week, doing your head in, you need a bit of a break. A lot of pharmacists I know actually go into property. This gentleman in particular, go follow him on LinkedIn. I actually came across them at the pharmacy show. They specialize in helping healthcare professionals in property, and he's a locum pharmacist himself. So it's completely different when you're investing in property and depending what your background is. And I find people who have done other businesses and other entrepreneurs who are also pharmacists, it makes it a bit easier for me because then I can tell them my concerns, whether it's from an income point of view, and they can completely understand where I'm coming from because they understand my industry and my sector. So property, that gentleman is your guy. He's really good. Then there's several online businesses out there at the moment. I know there's a lot of affiliate marketing programs. I actually have an online business with a health and wellness company, and I link that to my aesthetics clinic. And it may not be bringing me thousands and thousands of pounds every month, but it is passive income. And what I do notice is that I recommend vitamin supplements through my clinic anyway. One of the services I offer is actually a bespoke skin consultation, and that's not so we scan the patient's skin, scan their face, we create a bespoke skincare plan for them, but included in that is also a vitamins and supplements plan, because it's not just about what you put on your skin topically, it's also about what you ingest and your lifestyle factors, etc. So we include bespoke vitamins plans. And rather than me trying to stock different vitamins on the shelf, which is not actually possible for me because I have different locations for my clinics, I can't be carrying so much stock all the time. I don't want to carry so much stock all the time. So I've partnered with different areas that can actually provide those products for me. So for example, now I may randomly just see money coming into the business bank account. It may not be hundreds and thousands of pounds, but you'll see when I've done the hard work once with a patient. So you go through everything, you talk about their gut health or whatever you're recommending. And once they are happy, they can just log on themselves and make their purchases. There's also a personal shopping feature on the website. So if a client texts me and says, "Hi, can you send me some more of my supplements?" As long as they've opted in for the personal shopping, I should just go in and do it quickly. And sometimes I won't realize there's a quick like 50, 60, 100, 200 pounds just dropping into the bank account when I feel like I haven't done anything. So that's a good example of like a passive income where you do the work once and it just keeps going and going. So that's a nice thing that I've linked into my aesthetics clinic. Health and wellness consultancy. Now there are so many pharmacists out there who are specializing in small clinical areas. So there's a huge topic on women's health, nutrition, dietitians. There are also pharmacists going and getting qualifications as a personal trainer. Or something in sports science, or something on social media. And sometimes you don't even have to use social media to make extra income. I've just chosen to. But it's a good way to know that if you are a pharmacist, you already have a medical degree. You are already smarter than a certain percentage of the rest of the population because you have a medical degree. It's not an easy qualification to obtain. So when you're having an add-on to something, if let's say you want to go do a personal training qualification, I think it costs between £2,000 to £3,000, don't quote me on it, around that much. That will be an investment in yourself, because whenever you do have clients, what sets you apart compared to maybe a different personal trainer will be that you've got a medical background, you can assess them differently, your knowledge of anatomy might be different. So remember, even if you are going to earn income from non-conventional pharmacist ways, you still will always have that MPharm degree as your backbone, and use that to your advantage. You've worked really hard for it, so make sure you still scream and shout about it, even if you go off into a different industry. Educational content. I've had my own consultancy company before. It was an educational platform. I'm not doing that anymore, but that was actually getting together with two other pharmacists and providing extra training for pre-registration pharmacists. I know some fantastic companies on social media. I don't know if any of them are on here today. So we've got, if any of you guys have heard of Microfarm or Revise Pharma. There's so many now where they have amazing programs for pre-registration pharmacists, and they've created a whole business out of it. I know Revise Pharma has actually quit all his other jobs, etc., and just focuses on his business full time, and he's doing really well. So it is possible to think outside of the box and to, do different things, but still using your pharmacy degree. Then we have things like ownership. So either in pharmacy or not. So for example, I got a message today that somebody is selling a clinic, an aesthetics clinic. It comes with sort of, certain laser machines, etc., for £150,000. That's cheaper than buying a house or a property in London, especially. So a lot of people I know, and I tend to network a lot now with both pharmacy and non-pharmacy professionals who specialize in buying businesses. I've got a really great contact. She's actually helped me do so many different things, and she sources businesses for her clients. And she's actually said, don't worry, guys, this webinar is recorded and you can access it later. I've just seen a couple of the comments, people saying you've missed the first half an hour. Don't worry, it's recorded. Yes, I've got a client who will basically source businesses for people. And some of those people are doctors, dentists, pharmacists, property developers, the list goes on. And sometimes it's more profitable to invest in a business. And sometimes that business is fully already set up. You just have to go and buy the business and carry it on. If you look at the bottom of this slide, I've actually asked Locator Locum if we can get some screen grabs. So these are actually some examples of pharmacists who use Locator Locum predominantly for their locum work. And now bear in mind, this is just the income they've made from the Locator Locum app and the shifts from Locator Locum. This does not include anything else. So they could have done some locum shifts outside, etc. But if you just look at some of the incomes, this is all obviously anonymous. That's the monthly income for someone in September and in August. If that's their average income, and times that by 12, that is a 6-figure salary. So even as a locum pharmacist, I've come across hundreds of locums in my time where they've only been locum pharmacists, and they've been very open and honest and said, yes, I've easily hit the 6-figure mark. And that's because they know their worth. They know their worth. They know what their hourly rate is worth as well. So I had a conversation with someone today, and we were talking about if you were to hire a cleaner. I often say, what are you worth for that 1 hour of work? Is it £50 an hour? Is it £100 an hour? Is it £200 an hour? I don't mean in pharmacy, I just mean in general for whatever you're doing. And sometimes you have to outsource things in order for you to be able to make that income. I know a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners where they will essentially, rather than get the train into London or wherever they have to go, or drive, they will think, right, my taxi will cost me £30 or £40. Let me do that. In that 1 hour journey, I could make extra money. I could build my business, and it's actually more beneficial for me, and I'll be driven to my destination. So you have to, that's sort of the ways that you need to think. Of course, entrepreneurship is not an easy journey. It's also not for everyone. So one thing I can say on this webinar is that I'm not here to say, yes, guys, you can make 6 figures from your one employer, because they're going to pay you £150,000 a year. I can't say that. In community pharmacy, that's very, very, very rare. But depending on the sector you go in, it can happen. But sometimes you have to dip into several different sectors, which is what I've done. I can't sit here and say I've earned 6 figures from one role, because I haven't. Next slide, please, Olivia. So just some top tips. I've probably said it a million times, but you definitely need to invest in training. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of the phrase, you are your best investment. We're so quick to spend £100 on dinner out, the new iPhone, that's £1,200, etc. Sometimes just invest your money in a training course. And if you're self-employed, that training course is a business expense anyway, as long as it's relevant to what you are doing. Always upskill yourself. I've come across hundreds of pharmacists who are doing amazing things, and I sometimes think, wow, I'd love to get involved. I'd love to do that. I probably don't have the capacity because I do a million things as it is, but it's nice to hear that there's so many pharmacists out there who are breaking barriers. There's also, you also don't want to get left behind. On the flip side, so I've met hundreds of pharmacists who are doing great things. And on the flip side, I've also met a lot of pharmacists who want to do all these great things, who want to earn more money, who want more freedom, etc., but they're not actually willing to do the work that it takes to upskill themselves. So unfortunately, sometimes we often think, oh, I'm qualified now, I went through hell as it is at university and doing the course and my pre-reg training, isn't that enough? But unfortunately, it's not enough. If you want to get to that next level, you have to upskill yourself, and that's just something you will hear in any industry you work in. You have the foundations already as a pharmacist to perform nearly most roles. Okay, you can't be a doctor or dentist, but if you were to take some of your skill set to the finance industry, I know a pharmacist who I've connected with on LinkedIn, and she's actually a consultant for EY, Ernst & Young, and that's a huge big four firm, but she's a pharmacist, and you wouldn't think that. She's just used her skill set to reinvent herself, transfer it over to a consultancy role. She's probably making a lot more money than what she would have if she stayed in community hospital, GP practice, for example. And she probably has so much more flexibility. So there are ways to do things, and there's definitely different sectors that are willing to welcome pharmacists in. When you ask for a pay rise, okay, so I've been employed for a very long time. We all go through our phases of asking for different pay increases, and I've somewhat become quite good at just writing good emails, not just for myself, but for some of my friends who work in other sectors, because I'm on the manager side. You have to put your manager hat on when you are asking for a pay rise. You have to make sure you focus on what you specifically as an individual have done, as opposed to the targets your pharmacy has hit. This is mainly for community pharmacy. So I find there's no good saying, oh, we've increased our prescription numbers by this, because that's probably you and the whole team. If you word it in ways that say, I have helped to lead a team to do X, Y, Z, that's sometimes a bit more, it works a little bit more. Also make sure you are quite specific and also realistic when asking for a pay increase. I wouldn't advise you ask for something ridiculous, but hey, if you want to be brave, go ahead, be my guest, tell me how you did it. But a lot of the times, think from a business point of view. Whatever figure you pitch, the person on the other side will always bring it down. That's just a rule in business. Whether you ask for a pay rise in community pharmacy, hospital, industry, whether you're negotiating a business, whether you're trying to buy a house, no one's going to say, hi, I will offer you this, and the other person says, yes, fine, done. There's always going to be some negotiation involved. Start small and increase your goals slowly but surely. It's taken me years and years and years to do some of the businesses that I'm doing. Like even my clinic now, it's nowhere near where I would want it to be. But if I just pause and think, right, this time last year, where was I? You realize how much you have grown. And sometimes it's not necessarily financial growth. It can be personal growth. It can be growth in learning new skills. I never thought as a pharmacist I would be working with L'Oreal, for example, doing a webinar for their pharmacists, being paid for that, being a stockist for L'Oreal and one of their skincare brands. So you have to give yourself some grace and always dream big. That's my motto, dream big, but also pause just to realize how far you've come along. Because if you give yourself small little bite-sized chunks, you're more likely to achieve them. Make your money work for you. When I say that, I mean things like think about investing. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm only just telling you what I've done for myself and just things I've learned from the internet, to be honest, and having great connections. Networking is important. That's what's helped me. Researching. We're so lucky we've got everything at our fingertips with YouTube and social media. Just investing in different stocks and shares, ISAs, for example. You'll see if you go and look into some compound interest, that will teach you how to make your money grow. So it's essentially a percentage of growth on the money in the account, then more gets added on and you just keep growing it. And it sort of helps to increase some of your financial profiles. However, it is an investment. Your capital is at risk. So make sure you assess your finances before you invest in anything. Automating services in business. So earlier on, when I discussed possibly a cleaner, for example, very minor example, but I was on a coaching call this morning. I've got a business coach, and one of the things I've said that in my business that I really want to make sure I do is automate something. One annoying task that will basically be automated by some sort of software to stop me going in and doing something manually. And you can even do that in pharmacy, for example. If you're a locum pharmacist, and I know Olivia touched on this briefly at the beginning of the session, a service that Locator Locum provide is the Locator Locum Pro. It's like an extended add-on to your to the app. It's only, I think it's like £12 a month or something, which is a business expense. That is one way you can automate everything. So back when I was a locum, I would spend ages sitting down, writing all my invoices, emailing them off, sending them off, then chasing them, then actually manually working out how much money I've made for the month, because these things didn't exist for me. But when you have services such as Locator Locum Pro, it will help you to make smarter choices, and it will essentially cut down your time. And the time you're saving, you could be using that time to rest, because you need that too. Looking at other new business ideas, spending time with family, friends, your self-care, whatever it is you want to do, just because you don't have to faff and have the headache of, let me sort out my invoices or how much money did I make. Because then when you're sending information to your accountant, you can actually extract all of that information from the Locator Locum Pro service and just give it straight to your accountant. In addition, this brings me to my next point: get a good accountant, especially if you are self-employed. Now, I think with Locator Locum Pro, there's actually a discount for an accountant. Olivia, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, it's a company called Tech Scouts, and they will help prepare the self-assessment for you.
Yeah, and I believe they do it quite cheap. So it's a good service that you can basically pull out all that information, everything you've earned, and then whip it onto an accountant who is linked in. So they have experience with pharmacists anyway. Next slide, please, Olivia. Okay, if you are employed, this is mainly for community pharmacy, actually even hospital industry. Think of ways you can actually increase your employer package. So think of, sometimes it's good to have a good basic salary, but what is the whole package worth? So think about your bonuses, for example, any overtime. How does that look like? Do they pay you your normal rate? Do they pay you time and a half? What kind of things can you negotiate? Any new services you're bringing to the business, especially if it's a community pharmacy, if it's your idea. And let's say now there's a lot of pharmacies doing private services. So a good example is earwax removal. We use Timper Health. They're fantastic. Speak to your employer and say, right, if we bring in this service, we charge £80 to clean 2 ears. What percentage of that can I take? Things like that. Think outside the box. And you have to find ways to say, the person who's paying you, say to them, look, I can make you more money, but I also will need a cut off that. So essentially you both win. The employer makes more money and you get an extra little bit too. We discussed this earlier. What is your hourly rate worth? Whatever it's worth. Sometimes you need to outsource a task. Private services we've actually discussed already. And yes, further your qualifications. So I know a lot of pharmacists who are going to be graduating over the next few years, they will already come out as independent prescribers. But if you are on this call and you are not an independent prescriber, I urge you to really look into it. Only because I wouldn't want you to get left behind. I did my prescribing qualification 5 years ago, 2019, 2019. And it is, back then there was no funding. So stupidly, I did my IP course and then funding came out like the year later. And it was probably the best £2,000 to £3,000 I've ever spent, because I got my qualification out of the way. It was hard. It was very difficult. Not difficult clinically or academically. It was hard to juggle a full-time role plus so many extra things I'm doing, plus trying to study, get your clinic hours in, get your DPP hours in, and your supervision, your portfolios, and your exams. But it was the best money I've spent, because I've definitely got a return on my investment. It allowed me to do so much. It's helped me with my aesthetics clinic. It's helped me make extra money when I need it to. It's helped me be a medical cannabis specialist. Like, the list goes on. So I would highly recommend that. In addition to IP, you can also be an advanced clinical practitioner, which is even more of a bigger qualification. Consider specializing in different roles. And once you are confident in your specialism, definitely look into the private sector, because private sector does pay more than the NHS. However, in the private sector, the downside is that you sometimes get left to your own devices. You are on your own. You don't have as much support. Sometimes you need to be the one to put proper procedures in place, because pathways are completely different to the NHS. Somebody asked a question. I'll answer that in a moment. How did you prepare to set up your clinic? Next slide, please, Olivia. And yes, there you go. Back to the old age question. Can a pharmacist really make six figures? Yes, I believe you can. Do I believe it will come like this? No. It won't come from a conventional role. It is very hard work, but it is not impossible. I'm not going to sit here and say I've made six figures every single year since I've been qualified, because that's not true. There are years I have and there's years I haven't. It's dependent on how much effort and work I want to put into my career and my business, etc. But yes, it's definitely possible. Any questions, feel free to just drop them in the comments. Somebody asked, how did you prepare to set up your clinic? To be fair, I was always interested in the aesthetic side. I personally think I've been quite slow with it, but I'm just doing things at my own pace. So first of all, got my training done out of the way. Always use a reputable training academy. Me personally, I've always only used Derma Medical for my aesthetics training. I think they have loads of discount codes on as well. If you want to drop me a DM, I think I have a code too. And the reason I use them is because they only train medical professionals, and they also only they are very pro pharmacist in aesthetics. I know aesthetics is very unregulated as an industry, and anyone can do it, and sometimes there's some negative connotations around pharmacists doing it from other medics. So Derma Medical are very pro pharmacist. So did my training, then I sort of just decided if I'm going to go work for a clinic, do my own thing, get comfortable with injecting, and I just threw myself straight in the deep end and just set up my own company, set up my own branding, etc. And this slowly got comfortable with injecting on my own. That is a whole different sector in itself. And then you sort of just put your SOPs in place. It is a lot of admin work, a lot of paperwork, but it's definitely possible. I know some fantastic aesthetics pharmacists who are doing amazing things. They are doing it full time and they are making a great income from it. So yeah, it definitely takes about a million different steps, but the first thing you do is get your training in. Any other questions at all? Olivia, did you get any questions come through?
No, there's just nothing through on LinkedIn here at the minute, but please feel free, everyone, to post in. Yeah. Maybe give it another couple of minutes. But Serena, thank you so much. That was such an informative webinar. I'm not even a pharmacist, and I'm inspired. It was it was so incredible. I think, like, whenever you deliver these talks, to show how diverse the career of the industry of pharmacy is, and there's all these different avenues for everyone to explore. So that was so interesting. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And just to clarify, so the webinar's recorded. Is it going to be emailed out to everyone who registered, or is it available somewhere to replay and watch?
Yes, so for everyone who registered, I will be sending out the recording tomorrow morning. And then also you can catch up on LinkedIn on our page, so the recording will be saved there too.
Perfect.
Yeah, and we'll also, just so your reminder, have the LPro discount code will be available then
Yes.
also until the end of November. And if
And
you
that's
do have any
inside as
questions,
well.
yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
So if
that's
anybody
inside.
does have any questions, please do feel free to reach out to us on social media or via the website, and we can give you some more information on LPro.
Perfect. And if anyone has any questions, they're more than welcome to DM me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is Sarina Mughal. Instagram is The Classy Chemist. I'll try to get back to as much people as I can. But if I don't get back to you, just message me again. How do you get CQC approval for fillers? You don't need CQC approval for fillers. CQC approval is, so if you have a clinic and you are interested in getting CQC registered, that's actually for treatment of disease. So it's a bit of a grey area in aesthetics. If you're doing fillers for cosmetic reasons, you don't need CQC approval. But if you are in a registered clinic where you'll be prescribing for treatment of disease, and then you will need to be CQC registered. The only thing I would say is for fillers, it is good too, only because if you have a patient who comes in for lip filler, for example, and they have a high risk of cold sores, you will have to prescribe them acyclovir as prophylaxis beforehand, because there is a higher risk of fillers causing a cold sore, etc. So you wouldn't be able to inject if they have an active cold sore, and if they are prone to cold sores, you'd usually give them prophylactic treatment before. Now, in order to do that, technically that is treatment of disease, and therefore you need to go through CQC. The process for CQC is quite long, but it's all available online. So if you are going to be doing a lot of treatments that relate to that, I'd definitely consider it.
Thank you, Serena. That is perfect. We'll keep the eye out on the comments, but thank you so much to everyone for joining us this Monday evening. We really, really appreciate it. As I said, the recording will be sent out tomorrow morning, and if you've got any questions, please do get in touch with us. So thank you, everyone, and we'll speak to you very soon.
Thank you.